Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, your home for Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Make sure that you make sure that you subscribe, tell all your friends, or if you'd rather, you can catch us anywhere you get your podcast from. It's a Monday, which means we're diving into Pittsburgh Penguins Power Rankings. We missed last week, so we got a lot to catch up on because a lot has happened between week 7 of the Power Rankings and now week 9 of the Power Rankings. A lot of players vying for these top 5 spots, a lot of discussions to be had, and a couple snubs that I'm sure people will take umbrage with. But let's get into the one player that has dropped from the rankings, and it's simply because, well, he hasn't played. Healthy scratch in 5 consecutive games before getting back in on Saturday, filling in for Philip Tomasino, and that's Jesse Puljujärvi. He was previously in the top 5 at number 5. But again, when you're not playing, it's hard to keep you in that top 5. And again, wasn't my decision to take him out of the lineup. I was a little surprised at the decision to take him out of the lineup. I think that when he's been in, overall, he's been a pretty good player for the Penguins this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's given the opportunity that he goes out there and he plays well again for the Penguins. He was all right on Saturday. He might get another opportunity tomorrow. And if he does, let's see if he's able to kind of extend his fairly decent resume on the season. But because of the fact that he was a healthy scratch for 5 games, we're going to take him out of the top 5 and say Jesse Puljujärvi has dropped from the rankings. Honorable mention, this is a very busy group this week, and I'm probably going to miss one, and I'm probably not going to mention one that you believe or that you know should be included in honorable mention or should even be in the top 5. But let's start with Owen Pickering. Owen Pickering has been very good since making his NHL debut, and honestly, he is much further along and much more NHL ready than I could have ever imagined coming into this season, right? This is the first year that he's playing professional hockey. He went from junior last year when he was the captain of the Swift Current Broncos to now being a guy who, as of Saturday, is featured on the top defense pairing alongside Chris Letang. Pickering has been very, very good. Nearly scored his second goal in as many games on Friday against the New York Rangers. He's proving that he is a threat in the offensive zone. He's proving that he can already use his body, 6'5", 200 pounds, and he's throwing it around like he knows how to use it. He's been very good for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and so too has been my second honorable mention of the week. That goes to Phil Tomasino. He's been a spark plug for the Pittsburgh Penguins ever since he was traded over from the Nashville Predators, putting the puck in the back of the net in big moments, including on Friday night, which pulled him even with the New York Rangers. Unfortunately, that was just a game that it didn't seem like they were going to win. They just couldn't put anything together outside of these brief moments. Tomasino, well, he supplied one of those brief moments. A great goal against the New York Rangers. He has been fantastic in the Penguins' top 6, and we're hoping that he gets back to a full bill of health here in the next week or so. Was a limited participant at Penguins practice earlier today. He was in a non-contact sweater, so hopefully he's able to get back on the ice because he has been very good since coming over from Nashville. He gets an honorable mention for this week's Power Rankings. And the last honorable mention before we dive into that top 5, it's going to go to goaltender Tristan Jarry. Tristan Jarry, don't look now, but is the author of 4 consecutive victories since he started taking back over. And in his last 3, he has been particularly good, right? He got the win over Vancouver on Thanksgiving Eve, and he made a couple of nice saves, but all in all, wasn't the best performance. But at the end of the day, got enough saves to get the Penguins the victory. Since then, nowhere near the same script. He's been very good against the Bruins, been very good against the Panthers, been very good against the Maple Leafs. So he's playing good competition, and in those games, he has a 2.33 goals against average and a 923 save percentage. Tristan Jarry has been spectacular over the past week or so, and that's great news for the Penguins. Certainly playing better in front of him at times, because at other times, he's been absolutely hung out to dry, which, again, you don't expect the Penguins to go out there and all of a sudden become one of the best defensive teams in hockey. But Tristan Jarry has been good when he's been called upon in all of these games and starting to look like the Tristan Jarry that the Penguins wanted him to be when they signed him to that contract. Obviously, a long way to go before he lives up to the contract and the money that he is making. But let's jump into the top 5 because busy group of honorable mentions. One player dropped from the rankings. We've already talked about 4. We got 5 more to discuss, and one of them, he might be down 3 spots. He might have cooled off a bit since his hot comeback run after he suffered a couple of healthy scratches at the hands of Mike Sullivan. But I think Michael Bunting is still playing extremely well. Scored the game-winning goal on Saturday, kind of a right place at the right time moment for him against his former team. But all in all, 12 points in 28 games played, 6 goals, 6 assists, and he has been much more of what you expect Michael Bunting to be for the past now 2 to 3 weeks, right? You can see it happen in short spurts. That's great. You need to see it happen consistently, and we're starting to see that with Michael Bunting. He does drop down 3 spots, but I think that's simply because there's a couple of players that have kind of earned the spots ahead of him, and he hasn't been able to kind of outperform those players in particular, one being Blake Lizotte. Blake Lizotte, previously unranked, but you look at the impact that he has provided for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it is tremendous. 13 games played for Lizotte this season, obviously between 2 concussions that are just completely unfortunate. Both times a puck striking him in the head, but he's healthy right now, and he's playing some very good hockey. 9 points in 13 games played, 6 of them being goals, and I understand 2 of those 6 goals are empty netters, but the dude works his tail off to get both of those empty net goals, and that's the reason that he's on the ice in those moments to begin with. So Lizotte has been very good. And you talk about fits. We always say whenever there's a new signing, whenever there's a new trade, there's a new player in town, we talk about the fit. How is he going to fit with the Penguins in the locker room? How is he going to fit with his new line mates? How is he going to fit in Mike Sullivan's system? He's going to fit like a glove is the answer for Blake Lizotte. The Penguins, with Lizotte in the lineup, are 8-3-2. Hard to believe that they're 8-3-2 at all, considering how they started throughout the first 2 months of this season. But 8-3-2 with Blake Lizotte in the lineup. Without Lizotte, they are 4-10-2. So you can obviously see that he is making an impact. I'm not saying it's all because of him, but I am saying that he is the straw that stirs the drink in the Penguins' bottom 6, and he's certainly been a revelation for the black and gold this season. At number 3, no change to the last rankings 2 weeks ago. Somebody that I thought long and hard about this week, and that is Evgeni Malkin. He is going to stick at that number 3 spot. Hasn't been lighting the world on fire, but you look at what he's been able to do since Philip Tomasino joined his line. Since it's been him, Tomasino, and Drew O'Connor, you really like to see that. Now, Drew O'Connor, it's been 20-plus games since he's lit the lamp. They need to get the guy on the board. He's not playing bad hockey alongside of Malkin, alongside of Lizotte when he's down on the third line, because they flip-flopped Bunting and O'Connor a couple times over the last couple of weeks, but you just need to get the guy on the board. He has been sniffing it for the last 3 or 4 games, in particular, the game against the New York Rangers. He was everywhere except the back of the net. So you need to get him back on the board, but I think he's meshed really well with Evgeni Malkin. I think Tomasino has meshed really well with Evgeni Malkin. And Malkin this year, it hasn't been consistent. There have been a lot of ups and downs, as you would expect from a 38-year-old center, but when he scores in bunches. And when he is on, the Penguins are tough to beat. We're going to go back to these records. Malkin has 8 multi-point games this year, which is twice as many as he has single-point games. He only has 4 games in which he scored 1 point, 8 games in which he has scored multiple points. So when he's on, he is on to a massive degree. And when he scores, well, the Penguins are 8-3-1. So every time Evgeni Malkin gets going, the Penguins get going right there with them. So nice to see Evgeni Malkin sticking at 3. I think that the one thing you'd like to see is more consistency. If you get that, the Penguins might be able to continue climbing out of the hole that they put themselves in the first 2 months of the season. Number 2, and these two are a dynamic duo if I've ever seen one between number 2 and number 1. Number 2 is going to be Ricard Rakell, who has stuck in this spot on multiple iterations of this power rankings. 29 games played, 18 points, 11 goals, and 7 assists. He is entering his Team Sweden Revenge Tour era. He has 4 goals in his last 6 games, and him and Sidney Crosby, who, spoiler alert, is number 1 once again, are absolutely magic together. It's not quite Sidney Crosby, Jake Gensel level. I think that is something that is very special. And I think Jake Gensel is also just a higher level of player, right? Rakell is a 30-goal scorer, bona fide. Jake Gensel is a bona fide point per game, 40-goal scorer type of talent. And that's why I think that magic is a little bit of a higher degree, but this is as close as you're going to get to it for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ricard Rakell, Sidney Crosby, absolute magic. And a lot of that is credit to Ricard Rakell bouncing back after the season that he had last year. I know we've mentioned that a lot, but whenever you look at the year he had, suffering injuries to his shoulder, playing through that, playing with a brace, and everybody saying, man, that 6-year contract looks awful. He's one of the worst deals on the team. Coming back this year and playing the way that he's been playing is phenomenal for the Penguins. He's been great. He's been electric. He's been fun to watch, and he is the number 2 player on the Pittsburgh Penguins Power Rankings. And then I mentioned it, Sidney Crosby is at number 1. Where else are you going to go than the captain? The Penguins are playing their best stretch that they have played all season long, and he is once again the catalyst. 29 games played, 27 points for the captain, 8 goals, 19 assists. He's as steady as ever. He has points in 10 of his last 12 games, so nearly impossible to keep Sidney Crosby off the score sheet this year. Although I will say this, the one thing that bothers me a little bit about Sidney Crosby is that of those last 12 games where he has points in 10 of them, only 2 goals. I would like to see the captain call his own number from time to time, but when you're winning hockey games and when Ricard Rakell is as hot as he is right now, when it comes to putting the puck in the back of the net, you do have to ride the hot hand. Sidney Crosby is well aware of that, and that is why he has been able to be captain facilitator over the last dozen games. I'd love to see him call his number a little bit more, especially after hitting that goal number 600 in the Utah game. Would love to see him start to add on to it, get up in the ranks there. But how can you be upset when the Penguins have won 5 of their last 6 games? Crosby is playing at a high level. So too is Ricard Rakell. So too are a lot of these players. I mean, Brian Rust is a guy I haven't even mentioned. He has scored some massive goals, from the OT winner last week against Florida to a big goal on Saturday against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's been very good for the Penguins. Early in the season, a lot of these top 5s were, well, these are the only 5 players that are playing at an above average level. Now it's a good spot to be in when in week 9, we're talking about there's the top 5. There's 3 honorable mentions, and there's arguments to be made about several other players to get onto this list and get onto this video. So it's a good spot to be in for the Penguins. They needed it, right? They put themselves in the back seat with their struggles in the early portion of the season, but they're experiencing one of their best runs over the last couple of seasons. Hopefully everybody out there is enjoying it. We'll see if they can keep it up tomorrow night against the Colorado Avalanche. But that's the top 5 here. We'll bring up the graphic once again. Number 5 is Michael Bunting, down a few spots, but still playing some pretty good hockey. Blake Lizotte gets into the top 5 at number 4. At number 3, Evgeni Malkin sticks where he was 2 weeks ago. Ricard Rakell bounces up 2 spots from number 4, where he was 2 weeks ago, to number 2 because he's lighting the lamp like it's nobody's business. And at number 1, well, that's Sir Sidney Patrick Crosby. But that's going to do it for this Power Rankings episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends, or if you'd rather, check us out anywhere you get your podcasts from by simply searching Tip of the Ice-Burgh. But that's going to do it for this one. We have a full episode on deck for tomorrow, talking more about the Pens, who have won 5 of their last 6 games. You love to see it. You love to talk about it. And we're excited to talk about it with you tomorrow on the show. But that's it for this one. We'll see you guys next time.